Hi, I'm Wafu, and this is the first part of my Autosplitter guide series. And I will try to go through everything you might need for autosplitting. It's not gonna be too complicated, I believe. Everything will be explained. There's not, like, the magic is not gonna be hidden from you. And I will try to go through many examples as well. And we will go through basically the 3 most common ways to get your values that you like remove loads by and do your splits, etc. So that's going to be just regular static values, then pointer scans, and later we will do a video for signature scanning, and that's going to be a bit more complicated, and you're probably never going to use that unless you are doing Autosplitter for like Unity game or something. So yeah, that's that. So this is not going to be cut in any way. I'm just not gonna bother with this because this is not really, it's not my way to cut my videos, so there you go. And there's gonna be chapters in every of these videos, so don't worry about that. And make sure to read them before you watch them, because there are gonna be some mess ups. I'm gonna definitely forget something, and if there is something like skip this part, then you should skip it. And of course, feel free to skip to whatever part you want. If you know already some stuff, you can feel free to like do your own thing. And of course, this is mainly for you to remind yourself some things. If you like forget something, you can easily get back to this. And that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna show you an easy autosplitter for a game called Arx Fatalis, which you may have seen if you have seen my runs. And we are gonna need a couple of tools, or not tools, because we also need the game. So we need the game, of course. That's, without that you cannot do anything. Make sure to have the version that is currently being run, because in some cases once the game updates, people just start using the newest version. And for example, if the game is on Steam, that's the easiest way to do it. And also, if, for example, in this one, I'm going to be showing the 103 version, which is not the newest one, but it is the one that is run on the leaderboards. So yeah, that's important. And the reason why that's important is because the pointers will be different for the next version, or they don't have to be, but usually it's different. So the next thing you will need is cheat engine. That is pretty obvious. You need to find the values in the game's memory, and that is the only way you can do it. Or not the only way, but it's the easiest way, I would say. The next thing you need is LiveSplit, just for testing the autosplitter. And then you will need some text editor. It can be Notepad if you want. I personally use Visual Studio Code, and that with the extension for autosplitting language. So if you just go to extensions and type ASL, it's not gonna find it, I guess, because, well, so I will do oh yeah, if you type ASL, it will somewhere find auto splitting language, so you can just install that. It will help you a tiny bit. So yeah, what it essentially does, it is helps you if you want to. We'll do auto splitting language, and for example, it will make these things faster for you. It's not really, you can even press Control Space and it's gonna show you all the options. It could be better. I hope that the person who made it will improve it at some point, but this is just, it's also for the syntax highlighting, which helps you to see it better, which is why I'm using it for the video. And there's also some stuff that you should probably know that exists. And there is this documentation for auto splitters, and you can find it on GitHub on this repository. So if you just Google GitHub LiveSplit auto splitters, you will probably find this. And there's many things explained in much more depth than I can do it in the video, but I'll try to cover most of this anyway. So yeah, and there's also this fatalist.pw website, which is made by Fatalist, and this is like a list of all the auto splitters that are submitted in this repository. And the important thing that this has is these features and behavior. So for example, if you want to make an auto splitter that uses, for example, signature scanning, which I talked about, which I will do later, you would just go there and you could check how it looks. Obviously this might sometimes be messy and maybe sometimes unnecessarily messy, but as you go through it, you will probably understand the code and you can learn from that. So yeah, that's like it helps you understand how people think about auto splitters, and you can also see like many ways how loads could be done or how splits could be done, because you need to know what to look for in the game, and that sometimes is hard to do, so you can get inspiration from other splitters. Alright, let's get to the real thing anyway. So I have my game open, and as you can notice here, it's already open in Cheat Engine. This is automatic for me because I have it set it up in that way, but for you it will probably look something like this. You will open this and load the game. In the settings, I recommend to change a couple of things. So here you can add the exe files that you scan for more often, because whenever you close the game, it's not gonna be hooked in Cheat Engine anymore and you have to do it again. So this will do it automatically for you, and you just add the exe file in these quotes and then add a semicolon after that if you have multiple of them. That's pretty easy. And here the update interval and freeze interval, you can lower them a bit, because those are the addresses that are gonna be here, and you want to see the changes quite often to like know what's accurate and what's not accurate. For example, in loads, if there is some delay, that's a problem. So you need to like refresh it quite often. And for the found addresses list that's here, I don't recommend doing that, like decreasing that, maybe a bit, but if you have a lot of addresses, it can cause some lag. And the next thing is hotkeys. I pretty much don't use anything else than those two. And I suggest these four because these are the ones that I use the most, and the others I usually don't, because those are new scans and that's really not that useful. And if I'm using next scan for exact value, I probably don't use it. I probably just type it in and do next scan, but you can bind it for yourself if you want to. And just a little helpful thing is you see, of course, a bit different keys maybe, but for this one I remember that it's that this is on the higher than sign on the keyboard, which basically makes sense with the name. So for increased values, I'm gonna be clicking the increased, the higher than sign, and for decreased value, I'm gonna be using the lower than sign. For change, I use the bracket and the other bracket for unchanged. You have to just make some intuitive way for your bindings. You don't really have to do that, but I recommend doing that. This key pole interval and the delay between activating hotkeys is a bit tricky. Sometimes you can double press if you are not careful. So maybe for the beginning, keep it at the default. But when you're more experienced and, for example, you want to clear addresses that need to be consistent in some way, for example, the value should not change at all, you want to have something lower to easily clear it by just holding the hotkey for unchanged value, for example. But yeah, this is not that important right now. You will definitely check the settings at some point and you will do these things on your own. So what am I gonna do here is, first I will just do a simple load removal. And where do we even start? So you need to have some option to make a load. So I will quick generate this character, and I already was in a load, but of course you don't want to create a character for the load every time. So I'm just gonna use a quick save and quick load for this purpose. And now I need to scan something that will tell me that I'm in a load or I'm not in a load. So for this, usually what works is scanning for a byte, and it will be 1 or 0 depending on what the state is. So if I say that in a load the value is 0, I'm gonna do 1 and scan for 1 in the load and for 0 in the game. But in this game it's not. Maybe it is that way, but there is a better way to do it, and there's more ways, of course, to do it in general. So for example, the game can have this very simple way of being just a byte and having 1 in the load and 0 in the game, or the other way around, like 1 in the game and 0 in the load. So there's multiple options, obviously, and this is not the only thing that can be that way. So it can also be a different number, and it might become very complicated because the number, for example, doesn't have to be the same every time. For example, it might be 1 in the load and some random number in the game, or 0 in the load and the random number in the game. There's countless options. So you have to really think about what you are going to scan for. And if you are absolutely desperate and you cannot find anything, you want to probably check for a value that doesn't change in the load. So you would scan for some unknown value, and you would look for like you would enter a load, you would scan for it, and once the load ends, you would scan for the change of the value. It will take a long time, obviously, because there's gonna be a lot of values, because it's unknown value that you don't have any exact number for. You can make that faster by doing a scanning value between, because realistically, if you do unknown initial value, the value can be like quite big. And you don't want that, so you want to, for example, do value between 0 and 100, and it's probably gonna work. It's probably gonna find something, but sometimes that's also not the case. So just be aware of this, that with unknown initial value, it's gonna find a lot of stuff. Well, back to the example I'm giving. You also once you would find a value that changes between the load and in game, you would then enter the load and do a couple of scans for unchanged value, so that once you enter the load, you would have a constant value that tells you the game is loading. And in the game, for example, it can be changing. That wouldn't matter really. So there's many options, and I'm going to try to show you these options in the next videos, and I hope that it's going to be all clear. In this case, I know that there is a very easy way to do this, and it's by the progress bar in the load. I'm not sure if I have to explain this to you. Binary, you don't use that. You can use byte, 2 bytes, 4 bytes. Usually if byte or 4 bytes works fine. Sometimes float or double works, because sometimes you need a decimal number. And sometimes you can even scan for a string. And strings are essentially text. We are gonna see that today. But first we will do float, because when I'm in this load, you can see this progress bar increases, and this is not an integer, this is a float. It's decimal number. So I'm gonna use that, and I'm gonna show you how basically you can do this. And I know what the value is already, what the value should be. So I know that in game the value is 0. So I can scan for that. And as soon as I enter load, I will scan for changed value. But I will do something else first. So I need to explain these settings briefly. Sometimes pausing the game while scanning is better, because then the game freezes and you have more time to basically not make a mistake. So I recommend doing that, especially in the beginnings. And for some more complex auto splitters which need to be more accurate, that's also a good option. Writable, you can make it the gray option if you want to. I will keep it at this, so that it doesn't produce that many values, because I know it's gonna find it. But if you can find something, then definitely put it to the gray. And yeah, So I will do first scan. This time the game completely freezes, and I don't want it to change, so I will scan for unchanged value. I hope it's this button. And I probably shouldn't have done that because there's a lot of values. Well, never mind. It's fine. So whenever I enter the load, I will press the hotkey for changed value. I'm like in the middle of the load just to be sure that I'm not misclicking it right at the start or right at the end. Because right before the load ends or starts, it could already change to something else. And now that I'm in game, I know it must have changed again, so I will scan again for changed value. And now it should be constant, it shouldn't change. So I will do a couple of unchanged value scans. And again, I will enter a load and do changed value scan. And again, I'm in game, so I can do that. And I still know that it's supposed to be 0 right now. We'll do a couple of those scans. And it's going to be, by the way, one of these arcs ones. And I'm gonna explain later why and how it's gonna look. So I will just do this, and I will repeat this a couple of times. I'm just scanning for changed value whenever I get into a load. Oh, and you would repeat this many times until you get the value. And you can also like enter different load just to be sure that everything is all right. Oh, I hope the green values are still here. Yeah. And I can also load from the menu. And the reason why I'm doing these different loads is because every load might be a bit different, and we want it to work for all the loads. We don't want to have like a value for every single level load or something like that. That would be more complicated and it would have a lot of values. So I will just do that. Again, scan for changed. Again. And I have about 759 values. That's about okay. And I already know which one I can use. I'm not sure if I see it on this list. I don't see it on the list. But you would take the value and you would add it like this, and you can track it here. So I know that the one I'm using in my auto splitter, and it's probably somewhere in the list, or it's just, or I accidentally removed it in some way because I made a mistake, but it's this one. And you can use any of those that work, you just need to confirm that they do work. So you can add multiple of them here and then just look here instead of scanning through all those values. And you can see that by the eye very easily. 86C. So no, that was not it. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I made a bit of a mistake. I was looking at a different version of the game. It's 47ED3C. Oh, this one. So it's actually here. So I didn't make a mistake. So probably these 4 values and these 5 values will probably all work. It seems like they are probably behaving in the way we want them to, but this one I think was the smoothest number of them, so I used that. And there's important difference between these values and these values. So you can see that this is a green one, and that means I have my job done basically. These ones need pointer scanning, and we will do that later for a different value, but for this purpose we will use the green one. If every time you have a green one you want to use that, and I will show you why that's important. So I will call that progress bar, and I'll just quit the game. If you quit the game, everything is reset. The memory of the game is reset, so you cannot use these values. Won't work. These addresses will not exist. These will, and you will see it right now. Most of them exist right at the start, but some will have like a question mark. Oh, they don't actually do that, so that's fine. And I will enter load, and as you can see, some of these could still be reacting to loads, but as you can see in the found addresses, these are not changing now in load, so these don't work anymore. But if I look here or here, I can actually see that it's changing in the way that it did previously. Of course, there are some errors in the found list. That's fine, because these are like, sometimes they are not something that actually shows you the load. Even after like resetting the game, it might be used for something else, so you have to be aware of that. But now I have a value that is the progress bar, and I know that I can use it. And I can use it in a very simple way, because now I have the value basically. I have the address, and I have the address that doesn't change whenever I exit the game, so I'm fine. So what I will do is I will create a state, and the state has process name and version identifier. The process name is the exe file, and the exe file is args.exe, but you don't have to type the exe because that's not necessary. Version identifier is only if you want to do the auto-splitter for different versions. That's not important here, so I will just do args. And last thing is the code. I will immediately save it so that I don't mess something up and close it in some way, and let's call it like args.aso. And now I need to make the value, so in the auto splitter, and you can see in the documentation there are these data types, and for this one we will use the float. Of course, you could use things like boolean, byte, string. For string, it's important that you add the length here, like so, but we will see that later. So anyway, I have a float, so I will make a float, and I will call it any name I want. It can be like load, it can be loading, but I will use progress bar because that's what we found. But that's just a name, it doesn't really matter. And this semicolon, or just a colon, means that we are adding some address to this variable so that it scans it. And we get this from here, actually. And this only applies for those green ones, that you can just take this and be happy, and it will work. So I will copy this offset, because that's the only thing we need. We don't need to add the args again, because the args is here. Also, if you don't know what to type here, it's what you're scanning in the cheat engine. So it's gonna be the argc. So I'm just gonna add the pointer like this. The 0x is important here because it's a hexadecimal number. So you always have to add that here. Also, one thing about hexadecimal numbers, this is not important, but if you have something like this, the zeros at the start are completely irrelevant. These don't do anything, so you can just keep it clean like this. Sometimes there's a situation where there's I accidentally scanned, never mind, so it's not visible anymore. But sometimes there is going to be something like a DLL, and that is usable, but you have to specify it here. I believe it's like this, but I'm not sure right now. So it's gonna be like some DLL and then the address, then the offset. I believe that's how it works. So anyway, I have the progress bar now, and it's always scanning for this value. And now I need to make the load work. So this doesn't work for splitting. I cannot use progress bar for splitting. The reason why I can't do that is because whenever I quick save and quick load, I wouldn't want it to split, right? So you always need like a level or chapter or something like that to split on. So loadings are not a good thing to split on, because you would have to unsplit if you accidentally load it or something like that. Next thing is I'm gonna create another thing, and that is loading. You can press Ctrl space and it's here. So is loading basically helps us remove the loads, and if it returns true, it will remove the loads during that time, and if it returns false, it will not. So we need some Boolean statement, and Boolean statements are basically asking for something like this, like for example, is progress bar not equal to 0? This means if the progress bar is not equal to 0. And if this is true, it will return true. If this is false, then it will return false. So all we need to do is return that. Of course, there's semicolon on every line because it's based on C# programming language, and that has semicolons at the end. And why did I do this? It's because whenever I will open the cheat engine again. You can see that I'm at 0 in the cheat engine right now, and I'm in game, and I don't want to be removing loads. But once I'm in the load, I'm at 238, and if I load it, for example, here, I might be at a different one. No, I'm at the same one, but there might be a situation where the number is different anyway. So I know that in the game it's 0, so it has to scan for whenever it's not 0. So I'm asking, is it not 0? If that is true, you remove loads, and we can actually see that it works, or confirm that it works if I do this. LiveSplit. So I open LiveSplit and I will load the load removal tool, the auto splitter tool. You edit the layout and you add control scriptable auto splitter. And here you just load the ASL file, and that's all you have to do. But for in-game time, you have to also compare against game time. I will start the timer, and let's see if it works. Quick save, quick load. It doesn't work, so there is an error somewhere. Probably. And I'm not sure where. So I will have to... Oh, I see it. So because you can compare. You have two options. You can compare old progress bar and current progress bar, because this is for tracking changes, and that helps you. For example, on splitting, it's used a lot. I will try it now, and it works. So obviously that was the issue, and this is something you have to remember. I think it's even like, yeah, here it's in the documentation, of course. The documentation has pretty much everything. So yeah. And the next thing I'm gonna do is, so we have load removal done. And I believe this is the most important thing. Every time you do an auto splitter, at first I focus on removing the loads, because that makes the leaderboards more fair for everyone, for people with hard drives, for people with like compared to people with SSDs, etc. And of course, then auto splitting is just comfort thing. It's not important. It doesn't give anyone advantage. So yeah, that's the first thing I think about. The next thing is the auto splitting, and that's just comfort, and we are gonna do that now. So I have multiple ways to do that. Again, I have multiple things I can split on, and it can be chapters, it can be quest state, it can be level, anything. It can be a map. There's many things. Sometimes you can find some hints in the game files. For example, if you are making auto splitter for games such as Half-Life, you would probably find, because the game has the map files in the folders, you would easily be able to scan for that. You would easily be able to find that. But with this one, I also found it in the game files, but it was a little bit different. So I'm splitting on every level, which is, for this case, it's a map. I don't mean like character level, but game level. And you would say that I'm on level 2 based on this map, but this is actually not really working. You could technically scan for 2 if you wanted to, and you would have this easy hint. This is like, auto splitting is something you have to just look for. You can, of course, again look for unknown initial value and then scan for unchanged until you want it to split. For example, when you get into the next level, then you would scan for changed, and it would probably find it. I think it wouldn't be that hard, but again, with unknown initial value, you have a lot of values and it would probably be slow. So what I did instead, because I knew that this didn't work, as you can see this image, I extracted the game files with a tool that comes with this port of the game, and I saw that this image is, I believe, 1, so I knew that it was level 1, and I believe it's level 1. Maybe not, I don't know. But I know the next one is 15, for example. Oh yeah, it's level 1. It's definitely level 1. So I want to scan for level 1, but this time it's actually scanning for the file name. So the file name was actually, it looked like, I will do a new scan. The file name looked like level and, for example, 12. I will not close it, it doesn't matter. So it looked like that, and that's what I have to scan for. So it is a string because it's a file name, but for your case it might be a number. It can be many things, and maybe it actually is available as a number as well, which would be a bit easier to scan. But this will be still easy. For modern games, you might sometimes need to use either of these, the UTF-16 or code page. For example, for Unity games, you should use the UTF-16 because it uses Unicode. But this is an old game, so we use just this regular string. Again, I have the pause the game while scanning, and I will scan for level 1. Unfortunately, with strings you cannot look for changes, so I have to manually do normal scans. Luckily it only found 70 values, and that makes it a bit easier. I'll break this, and once excuse me. Okay. And once I'm here, it should not be level 1, so I know that most of these don't work. But I know that the image that was loading right now was image level 15, so I will do next scan, and you can already see I have plenty of, just a few of these values. So the last thing I need is just some load that is not in this area. I would need like, well, it doesn't matter. Maybe if I do this it will, yeah. I just created a new game, and you can see that 4 of them broke and 1 works, because I'm still in level 1 and it should be level 1, so I know that there's only one value that works. What I wanted to do was load some different save, which is in, I had a save for level 4, I believe, or something like that. But that's fine, I know that this is removed. So it's really just about trying and going through this that way. For auto-splitting, you just have to progress through the game to find these things. You just have to play a bit and scan during playing. There's probably no other way around it, unless you find it in such an easy way like I just did. Sometimes you will be lucky. But this one is the black value, it's not green anymore, and this means that whenever I would close the game, it would completely reset and I cannot use this. So now I know it's string 7, which is string of length 7. If I do this, of course it's gonna be some different text. So yeah, that's why the Unicode and code page might be important. But now we need to still find a way to consistently reach this address, and that is done with pointers. And pointers are interesting thing. I will not explain them in depth, but they basically tell you the path to get to the address. So they give you like some offset. At that offset you read the address, and from that address you might have another offset, and when you go through all of these addresses, it points you basically to the final address. I know that probably sounds complicated, but in auto splitters it's really easy. because it's already done for you. But sometimes it's worth understanding if you want to make more complex tools and so on. So I will call this, let's say, a level. And I have two options. I can do a pointer scan or generate pointer map. First I will do a pointer scan because I need to explain these settings. So these are not important. This is not important. You will probably never use this. Sometimes it is actually useful, some of these, but most of the time not really. So max different offsets per node. Sometimes that's useful. I personally don't use it because it clears a lot of values. In this game it will probably work, but sometimes it clears way too much of them, and that you sometimes want more pointers. So yeah, and if you can use it, and if you come to a problem and you don't have any values in your pointer scan, you just don't use it. That's my way to go about it, except I don't use it anymore because usually I don't really see the benefit of it. Max level is the max amount of offsets the pointers have. So for example, you could have just the offset and then one offset. If you did, for example, this, you would have one extra offset only. So we can have a really long pointer. It's not gonna happen, so we can use like max level 7. I recommend something between 4 and 7 for most games. Sometimes you need to use 15 because that's basically some games are just more complicated. In Unity games you usually won't find anything here because the memory works different here. But sometimes in Unity games, if you go for 15 or something like that, you will sometimes get an actual pointer, and sometimes it will even work. Maximum offset value, it's not really important. If you just try around with this number, probably don't go below 4095, it's not necessary. But the higher it is, the more pointers you are gonna have, and they might work like these work quite often, like with high numbers, but it will scan for longer time, so you need to be careful about this. This is not something like, these settings are not like, this doesn't mean that if you use some high number, it will find only useless pointers. It will just take longer time. So just start small and you can go on from that. And you can use like max level. I will use 7, let's go with that. And I will click OK, and I will create a file. Let's call it, I wanted to call it A, now it's QA, whatever. And it will just go through this. You can also scan on network, that's kind of a funny thing. And we have a lot of results. So I shouldn't use the level 7, but it's whatever. So I will stop this. This will still find a lot of values. I already know that it's this one. I think it's that one, at least. Yeah, it should be it. You might see that it's pointing to, it's important to check here. The address that we are having is 4B7CA7CD, and it points to a different one. It points to 4B7CA7CC instead of D at the end. This doesn't matter, because if we see that it's similar, we just know that there's only difference of 1. So to fix that, I will take this and I will change it to D, because this is hexadecimal, so from C to D it's just 1 step, and now I have CD. It's the same address, I just need to set the right thing, and I have the level as a pointer. Now, this is totally not the way you will ever do it. This will never work for you if there's so few paths. So what you need to do is do a lot of rescans, and you want to basically, you can filter out invalid pointers, for example. You might do that sometime, but most of the time you want to just find the address again. Now, there's a different way to do this. It's a bit more hard to understand, but it's more consistent, or it's a bit faster, and it basically prevents having too many values, and it's gonna only have the valid ones mostly. So whenever you close the game, this window actually still works, and you can easily see which values are destroyed once you close the game. So I will actually do that with the pointer map, and you do that. I'll keep this. So this is the one we found in this list, and it is just this address, and I will make a pointer map instead. So I will create a folder for those pointer maps, and I'll do A. And for this purpose, it's good to name them, because this really helps you orient yourself. And now I will close the game actually. Usually it's worth to either remember how you got to this value, or just do regular pointer scan with quite a high max level and maximum offset, because sometimes you just cannot get it again, you cannot find it, and these pointer maps, these result maps or scan results work all the time, except they you can save your results that way. So definitely do that if you are not sure that you will find the value, because I'm sure I will get it, and because I already have a working pointer, I will not do this backup save. So I closed the game, you can see that it's disconnected from it. I will start it again. You will see that the first one doesn't work, and the second one also doesn't work, but that might be just because we are still in the menu, and it might create this value later. So I'll try this, and you can see that this works. So now what you would do after launching the game, you would want to find the level again. So you would scan for 1, enter the next level, scan for 15, just as I did it before, just as I found it before. So you sometimes need to make some notes on how you found a value. Now I know I will cheat, so I know that this is the address I'm looking for, okay? So this is the one that you would find if you did all of the scans again. So I will do this, and now I will create another pointer map. So just to not confuse you, this is imagine I scanned for level 1 again, did all of those things, and I found it again, and added it here. That's what you would do. And now I generate the pointer map again, and I will do pointer map B. And you can do this over and over until you are satisfied with whatever number of maps you have. I also recommend getting a pointer map from a different PC and after PC restart. This will almost perfectly make your pointers consistent. Or it will not find any because there's like none. So now what I will do is, let's say I have like 4 maps, which is enough for any case. I personally do like 2 or 3 maps, but I always reset my PC or do it on a different one, so that might be a bit different from when you just exit the game and reopen it. So now I will do pointer scan, regular one, and this time I will use the saved pointer map. Now I need to know that now I made a pointer map B, and I still didn't close the game, so I will open the pointer map B, and I will select the level. I can keep it at this, and I want to compare results with other saved pointer maps. Because I still have a pointer map A, and I can have many of them, and I want to compare it still against the level. That's why we are naming it, so that we know what address it is. And now for the final step, you can add like more here, as many as you can, as many as you want. And if you add the same one, of course it won't change anything, so don't do that, definitely. And now I will just do OK, and let's call it pointer map A. Like, this is not a pointer map, this is just a scan coming from pointer maps. And as you can see now, results found is 1, and it's evaluating a lot of paths, so it's definitely gonna take some time, but I can cancel it because I know there's 1 and that it's consistent. But you would probably have to wait or use different max level or different max offset. I will stop it, and here we are. This is the one as before, with the C at the end instead of the D, which I had to rewrite. But that's how you would get it. And as you can see, there's like much less of the values. So this is very important. But let's say you didn't find the value again. So you would have like, this was the one. This was the first one. So you would be like, okay, but like I lost the value, I don't have it anymore. So what you would do is very simple. You would rescan the memory, and you would, for example, you could do value, but with strings it doesn't work. You cannot check for strings. What you can do, if you have a string, you can change it to 4 bytes, and remember that value. That can work if you put it in here, but that's a messy solution, honestly. And it's also a different part. It's you would not know that there's the like, you would know it that there's C instead of a D, but because that happened, we cannot even like compare it, because all of these point one little part, like 1 byte before it. So we cannot use that. It's pointless. We cannot use the comparing. We cannot find values because they are different from this. They are completely different because it points to something else. Most of the time this doesn't happen, and you would easily type something here, like for example, if it was the C that it's pointing to, and I would have the string, I could just look at the thing, and if I scan for this it would probably filter them out properly, but I won't do that. I just assume that it's broken like this, and I'll put this back. So I assume that I closed the game, I have this results table, and I cannot find the value anymore. So I have one thing that can save me, and that is rescanning the memory and filtering out invalid pointers. So I'll do QB just to keep the same things. And as you can see, it reduced it by quite a lot. If you want to use the filtering, please be careful. You need to be in, like, I recommend you to be already in the game for this to work, because you don't want to remove values. Like in the menu you could see that the value didn't exist, this pointer didn't work, so you would just remove it from this and it would never work. So you need to be aware that sometimes you just need to be in the game, and even then it's still risky to do this, to do it this way. I will do another one with the same save, same game, and I can just close it because I need another instance. So this time I will open it again, and like right now it's showing me some bullcrap. Okay, now it's showing okay. But as you can see, this one points to something else, so it's not really safe, and it would also remove all of this. So again, I will get into the game just to be sure that it's not removing anything, and I can rescan for the invalid pointers, and this should clear a lot of it. And you would probably not know if it's this or that, but obviously you can choose the one that has less offsets, and that would be the solution. So sometimes you can save yourself from losing the value like this if you're not able to find it anymore. You can also, like, again, reset your computer, and that would remove even more values. So I recommend going with the one that has the least number of offsets, and that's basically it for this. Now let's say I have it, I have the pointer, and I want to add it into the auto splitter. So it's very easy. I will open this, and it is a pointer. That's very important. So now I will create a string, and I know that the string is 7. Now sometimes you might make a mistake. Also with Unreal Engine games, those which have Unicode, the length might be different. Even though it says like length 7 in Cheat Engine, it might be different in the game. Because I think Cheat Engine compensates the length. Like this is like the length of characters, and I think ASL takes it as length in bytes, something like that. And Unicode doesn't have only one length per character. So I have this, and it goes the same way. The beginning is the exact same. Also, if you scan for only level 1, level 2, level 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., it will have length 6. But once you get to like level 10, it will have length 7. So you also need to count for that. So if there is a possibility that there's gonna be a number that increases the string length, you need to think about that. You need to consider that. So I will do string 7, and I'll call it a level because that's what the game calls it, and I will do this. Now, as we said, these two are not necessary, these zeros, but you can keep them if you want to. It will work, it's just less clean, but it has no effect on the function. And now, very simple thing, take the D and add offset like this. This is a comma, not colon or semicolon, and you add it behind it. If there were more, like this, or if there was 0, don't think that 0 means that it can be ignored. That's not the case. If there's 0, even if it's 0 alone, it needs to be like this. So that's important. And let's say it's, oh, definitely that is hexadecimal. But if it's, for example, like this, it will go this way. It will go from the bottom to the top. So, like so. It goes from the bottom. But we obviously have just one, so we will use just the D. And now this is scanning for it, you don't have to do anything else. The value is taken care of. And now you treat it the same way as this, except you want to split on it. And splitting is done with the split, and it's the same method as you do for isLoading. If split returns true, it splits. If it returns false, it doesn't split. So when should the when should it split, right? So the level is, for example, now it's level 1. Once I'm going into the level 15, that's the next location, I should be splitting. So what happens here is you just say that whenever the level is changed, you split. So you can compare the current and old one. So I take old level is not the same as current level, and I return that. So if the level is not same, it will split. And that's for most autosplitters. This is how most autosplitters have this. We will go through more complex autosplitters which have like different ways of splitting, so we will go through that, but that's for a different video. Anyway, that's it for this, and let's test it. I will only have one split, that doesn't really matter, and I will start the timer. So I will make sure that quick save quick load works. It does, and let's see what happens. And it did split in the load, so that's perfect. So it worked, and that's it. So that was very simple autosplitter made in a fairly short amount of time, considering that I was explaining a lot of things. So yeah, that's very basic static value like this one, and very basic pointer scan, and also pointer maps. I really recommend you every time use pointer maps. It's more accurate, and you can also get pointer maps from different PCs. So if someone is willing to help you make an autosplitter, just have them do the scans in the cheat engine, send you their pointer map, and it's gonna be fine. You can use that pointer map in the scan yourself, and that will filter a lot of things that don't work for them, but they might work for you. Or scan it on your different computer, or at least after a restart. And that's it. Then use, if you want, I always make a backup pointer scan, just so that I have it, and just so that you know how you get to it, you just do any other pointer scan, and if you do file, open, and you open it, you will get back to where you were. So if you have the PTR file, don't worry that you can't get back to it again. You can. It's just, I think this is not openable in any other way than doing pointer scan, which is kind of weird. So you have to, even if you have to like scan for one, just add it here and then do pointer scan, just do it. It's gonna work fine. Maybe, well, no, this one closes. So yeah, that was just a basic auto splitter. I will do more complex ones in the future, and I will also do the one for Unity games with signature scanning, and I'll also go through all of these, not through all of these, I'll go through all of these options, and I'll go through more complex examples, and I hope I will explain basically everything to you. That's probably about it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments or DM me on Discord. That will be probably better. You can find my Discord on speedrun.com. I don't remember the number, unfortunately, but I can show it to you, I guess. So it's here. So Wafu #7264. So you can DM me there. I will probably answer you immediately, or as soon as I can, basically. And if you have anything you would want explained, I will definitely try to do that in the next ones. So make sure to reach out to me. Otherwise, I cannot really help. So that's it for this video. This is really basic, so make sure to watch the other ones that are coming soon, and I hope to see more good auto splitters in future. So bye.